Before we dive in, don't forget to smash that like button, drop a comment if you dare to stand beside a predator like this, and subscribe for more stories where humanity proves the galaxy wrong. Now let's begin. The war table glowed with shifting holograms, streams of light twisting into the image of a planet scarred by fire. 5 alien generals stood around the projection, their armored frames towering over the officers scurrying along the periphery. Each general was a veteran of a dozen conquests, their reputations etched in blood, their ambitions sharpened by empire. And yet, tonight, their eyes glittered with something beyond conquest. Tonight they hunted a legend. The beast cannot be ignored any longer, rumbled General Zacher, his mandibles clacking as he leaned into the map. His 4 arms tapped at glowing pins marking sites of slaughter. Entire regiments annihilated. Artillery destroyed as though struck by a god's fist. Soldiers abandoned their posts at the sound of its roar. If we capture it, the galaxy itself will kneel before us. Murmurs of agreement rippled across the chamber. Their species had risen to dominance by taming war machines, breaking monsters, and bending lesser races to their will. To them, the idea of a predator too wild, too powerful to control, was not fear, it was insult. A younger general sneered. Its hide will be our banner. Or its fury our weapon. Either way, humanity will know what it means to defy us. At that word, humanity, the room seemed to shift. For all their pride, the generals still carried a thorn in their claws. Human soldiers had resisted longer than expected, striking from shadows, refusing surrender. They were fragile by galactic standards, soft-bodied and underarmed, yet they lingered like a disease. And among them, rumors spread of a survivor, one who had not fallen when his unit was crushed, one who eluded capture again and again. A human who walked the jungles where the predator reigned. Find him as well, Zacher ordered. He is nothing. But I dislike vermin escaping nets. Far below their orbiting warship, the man they hunted pushed through the choking green of the jungle, his every breath labored. Captain Marcus Hale paused beneath a shattered tree trunk, rifle resting against his shoulder, ears straining. The forest was alive with whispers, the chitter of unseen insects, the groan of ancient roots, the rustle of things that watched from the shadows. His uniform was ragged, torn by weeks of survival. His face was gaunt, sun-darkened, but his eyes carried a steady fire. He knew he was being hunted. Not just by patrols of armored aliens scouring the planet, but by something else, something that stalked even them. He had seen its aftermath, armored tanks overturned and split open like fruit, claw marks gouged into stone, trails of blood that stretched for miles. Men whispered of demons. Aliens spoke of gods. To Hale, it was one more player in a war he had no intention of losing. His boots sank into damp soil as he moved, careful to disturb nothing. He was low on ammunition, lower still on food, and his body screamed for rest. Yet rest meant death. So he pressed on, deeper into territory even the invaders feared to tread. Above, the sky thundered with descending shuttles. Hale paused to watch a column of soldiers disembark into the valley below. Hundreds of them, heavy armor gleaming, banners snapping in the wind. Their formation reeked of arrogance, as though discipline alone could shield them from the jungle's wrath. He almost pitied them. Almost. A memory tugged at him, his last unit, ambushed and slaughtered while holding the ridge line. He had dragged 2 men out before the bombardment erased the rest. Both died within days. Since then, it had been him against the war machine of an empire. He fought not to win but to make every step cost them blood. The predator, though, its war was something else. It fought not with rifles or tactics, but with fury elemental and absolute. Hale wondered if that fury could be turned, not against him but alongside him. The thought was madness. Yet madness had kept him alive this long. Back in orbit, the generals convened once more as reports filtered in. Patrols gone silent. Forward scouts reduced to screams before transmission ended. The young general slammed a claw into the table, fury rising. Enough. Deploy the nets, the shock cannons, the plasma cages. Every resource we have. We will break this beast. And the human? Another asked. Crush him when convenient. A pest is still a pest. But Zacher said nothing. His gaze lingered on the map, on the tiny green splotches that marked the densest parts of the jungle. Something gnawed at him. The predator was no ordinary animal. The scattered reports spoke of patterns, of intelligence, of decisions made. And if the human truly lingered in the same territory, then perhaps the pest was more than chance. On the surface, Hale crouched low as the jungle trembled. He heard them before he saw them, aliens sweeping the undergrowth, their movements loud, mechanical, careless. He slipped behind a fallen pillar of stone, one of countless ruins dotting the planet, relics of a civilization long gone. Waiting, he tracked their progress. Then the ground shook. The soldiers froze. Weapons raised. A roar split the canopy, deeper and older than anything Hale had ever heard. Leaves burst from the treetops. Shadows moved. And then it was there. The predator crashed into the patrol with the force of a storm. Armor shattered beneath its claws, weapons bent like twigs. Screams filled the jungle, sharp and short-lived. Hale glimpsed its form only in flashes. Massive, fur streaked with silver, eyes burning gold in the dim light, jaws large enough to crush steel. The soldiers fired wildly, their plasma bolts carving glowing scars into the trees, but nothing slowed the beast. Hale pressed himself against the stone, heart pounding, every instinct screaming to run. Yet he did not. He watched. He studied. Where others saw chaos, he saw precision. The predator struck with purpose, dismantling its prey methodically. It avoided the strongest armor, tore through the weakest joints, silenced those who tried to rally. It was not madness. It was mastery. Minutes later, silence fell. The jungle dripped with blood. The predator stood amidst the carnage, chest heaving, eyes scanning. Then its gaze shifted. Straight toward Hale's hiding place. For an instant, soldier and beast locked eyes. Neither moved. The distance between them was measured in more than space. It was trust, fear, and something unspoken. Hale's rifle trembled in his grip. One pull of the trigger and he could end the moment. But he did not raise it. He only breathed, slow and steady, showing no fear. The predator tilted its massive head, nostrils flaring as though weighing him. Then, with a low rumble that shook the stone, it turned away, vanishing into the jungle's shadows. Hale remained frozen long after it had gone. His heart thundered. His hands trembled. And yet, beneath the fear, something else stirred, possibility. In orbit, Zacher received the report. Another patrol lost, their bodies torn apart, weapons scattered. Yet one detail stood out above all others. They were not eaten, the officer stammered. Every corpse left intact. Every weapon untouched. As if the beast was sending a message. The chamber fell into silence. Generals shifted uneasily, pride warring with unease. Zacher's mandibles clicked. His mind turned over the implications, dark and dangerous. Somewhere below, a human still breathed. Somewhere below, the predator still roared. And for the first time, Zacher wondered if the two were not separate threats but one. The hunt had begun, but not all hunters understood the game. The jungle draped itself in silence, but Marcus Hale knew better. Stillness in this place was not safety, it was anticipation. Every root and vine felt alive, every shadow seemed to breathe. He adjusted the strap of his battered rifle, its weight oddly comforting despite the dwindling ammunition inside. His body was worn thin, every muscle heavy with fatigue, but his mind remained sharp. Survival had etched a clarity into him, a sharpened edge no alien army could grind away. He moved deeper, away from the ruins where predator and soldiers had clashed. The smell of iron and scorched plasma still lingered, clinging to the air. Birds had not returned. Even insects kept their distance. It was as though the jungle itself feared to reclaim the battlefield. Hale felt the same chill gnawing at his spine, but unlike the others he could not turn back. The beast had seen him and had not killed him. That meant something. Night descended in a slow crawl, thick fog settling low across the ground. Hale found shelter in the hollow of a tree split open centuries ago, its insides dry and warm compared to the damp forest floor. He ate in silence, breaking his rations into small pieces, forcing himself to chew slowly. The taste was chalk and dust, yet he savored it, knowing there would be less tomorrow. A sound shifted in the distance, a low, steady crunch of earth beneath weight too deliberate to be wind or water. Hale froze, hands sliding toward his rifle. The crunch drew closer. Then, with a shadow blotting out the faint moonlight, the predator emerged. It stood less than 30 feet away, massive shoulders rising and falling, breath steaming into the night. Its eyes caught the dim glow of the stars, reflecting back molten gold. For the first time, Hale saw it clearly, fur streaked with silver scars, muscles rippling beneath, claws that could rend armor with ease. Blood still stained its flanks from the patrol it had destroyed. Hale's pulse hammered. His mind screamed for flight, but he knew running was pointless. Instead, he stayed seated, forcing his movements to remain calm. With deliberate care, he reached into his pack and withdrew a ration bar. His fingers broke it in half. Slowly, he placed one piece on the ground in front of him and pushed it toward the open air. The predator tilted its head, nostrils flaring. Its ears twitched, catching every sound, yet its gaze never left him. Step by step, it moved forward, claws carving shallow lines into the earth. Hale's throat tightened as the air seemed to thicken with its presence. When the beast stopped inches from the ration, time itself seemed to halt. It lowered its head, sniffed, then with a swift snap of jaws devoured the offering. The crunch of teeth on brittle protein echoed like thunder in the still night. Hale's hand did not tremble, though sweat slicked his skin. The predator's gaze rose again, meeting his. No longer hungry, no longer hunting, curious. A strange quiet passed between them. Hale felt the weight of intelligence in those golden eyes. It was not the emptiness of an animal driven solely by instinct. It was thought, measured and patient. The realization unsettled him more than fangs ever could. The predator rumbled low in its chest, a sound not quite threat, not quite approval. Then it turned and melted back into the jungle. Leaves whispered in its wake and then nothing. Hale exhaled only when his lungs screamed for air. His heart refused to slow. He had lived through ambushes, bombardments, betrayals, but nothing compared to the fragile bond of that moment. A gift of food. A spared life. The first thread of something neither alien generals nor human command could predict. By morning Hale was on the move again. The jungle grew denser, the ruins more frequent, pillars cracked by time, walls overtaken by roots. Once, a great civilization had ruled here. Now only shadows remained, and in those shadows, predators claimed dominion. The alien patrols came again, larger and more disciplined. Hale saw them before they saw him, their metal boots clanging against stone, their voices harsh in the alien tongue. They swept the ruins with energy scanners, searching not just for him but for the beast. He crouched low, waiting, heart steady, calculating paths of escape. A twig snapped behind him. He pivoted, rifle rising, only to lower it again instantly. The predator loomed above, silent as smoke. Its massive bulk dwarfed the stone archway it crouched beneath. Hale did not understand how such a creature moved without sound, but he understood the intent. It was not hunting him. It was waiting. The patrol entered the clearing. The aliens spread out, weapons raised, scanning every corner. One soldier stepped dangerously close to Hale's hiding place, his armor clinking with each breath. Hale's finger brushed his trigger, but before he could act, the jungle exploded. The predator struck with a roar that shattered the night. Soldiers screamed as claws raked through them, armor folding like paper. Plasma fire lit the ruins, painting the walls with burning light. Hale dove for cover, shielding his eyes from the chaos. Yet even through the flashes he saw something that locked itself into memory forever. The predator positioning itself between him and the alien guns. It did not retreat into safety. It did not flee. It stood as a wall of fury, striking anything that drew near. Plasma bolts tore furrows into its hide, but it fought on, tearing, crushing, rending. Hale's mind spun with disbelief. The beast was protecting him. Driven by instinct as old as training, Hale raised his rifle and joined the fight. His shots cracked through the clearing, precise and deadly. Where the predator's claws could not reach, his bullets did. Together, man and beast carved through the patrol until nothing remained but broken armor and smoke. Silence reclaimed the ruins, broken only by the predator's labored breaths. Blood streaked its fur, its chest heaving. Hale lowered his rifle, eyes fixed on the massive form that had shielded him from certain death. Slowly the predator turned its head. Their eyes met again, gold and steel. In that gaze, Hale saw no mindless ferocity. He saw choice. Deliberate choice. The predator had decided he was not prey. Hale stepped forward, daring to bridge the gulf. His voice was rough, almost lost in the night. "We're in this together, aren't we?" The predator rumbled, a sound low and resonant, vibrating through the ground itself. Then, with an almost imperceptible nod of its massive head, it turned and began to walk deeper into the jungle. Hale followed. Far above, on the orbiting flagship, reports poured into the war chamber. The generals listened as officers described another patrol slaughtered, this time with ballistic evidence woven into the carnage. Human rounds. The younger general hissed, mandibles clicking in frustration. Impossible. No human could survive here, not with the beast roaming. But Zacher leaned closer to the glowing map, his many eyes narrowing. Not impossible, he said softly. Dangerous. The chamber grew still. None dared interrupt as he traced a claw across the jungle's dense heart. The beast does not kill the human. The human does not fear the beast. Two predators walking as one. That is no accident. That is war. The younger general scoffed, though unease flickered in his gaze. Then we shall destroy them both. Zachar's voice dropped into a growl. No. We shall capture them. For if a human can command such a thing, then the weapon must be greater than we imagined. In the ruins below, Hale sat by the faint glow of a dying fire, Predator curled nearby like a mountain of fur and muscle. Its wounds bled slow but steady, each drop dark against the stone. Hale reached out, cautious, hand hovering inches from its side. The beast did not move. At last, his fingers brushed scarred fur, hot with life. For the first time since his crash, Marcus Hale felt something beyond survival. He felt alliance. And as the Predator's breath rumbled through the night, he knew this bond would draw the fury of generals and armies alike. The generals sharpened their plans with the precision of butchers. Reports of ruined patrols and whispers of a human surviving alongside the beast had transformed their hunt into obsession. Pride demanded the Predator's capture. Fear demanded its destruction. Zachar, ever the most calculating among them, demanded both. They devised a trap vast enough to consume forests. Net fields powered by orbital relays would close like iron jaws, while siege cannons poured fire from ridges. Armored regiments would drive the beast into the valley, where energy pylons already hummed beneath the earth, waiting to erupt in a lattice of burning light. It was not strategy meant to kill. It was strategy meant to enslave. From his command dais, Zachar traced the lines of their deployment with one claw. It will fight. It will resist. But even gods bleed when cages close. The younger general bared his teeth in satisfaction. And the human? Alive if convenient, dead if not. What matters is breaking the beast's will before the galaxy learns that a human ever stood beside it. On the surface, Marcus Hale was already learning of their movements. Smoke trails stained the sky where alien carriers descended. Columns of troops cut swathes through the jungle, trampling paths wide enough to crush trees older than empires. Hale studied them from high ridges, eyes narrowing as he counted vehicles and traced their patterns. It was a net and he was already caught inside it. The Predator sensed it too. It grew restless as days passed, prowling the edges of their campfires, snarling at distant lights. Its golden eyes burned with unease. Hale watched it, piecing together fragments of understanding from its movements. The beast had no words, yet its behavior told stories. The way it circled when danger drew near, the way it bristled at the hum of alien machines, the way it lowered its massive head when Hale laid a steadying hand on its scarred hide. Trust was no longer tentative. It had become necessity. They struck first, refusing to wait for the jaws to close. Hale's rifle cracked from shadows, picking off scouts before they could raise alarms. The Predator burst from cover beside him, tearing apart sensor drones before they could transmit. Their rhythm was unspoken, a dance of feral might and human precision. In one ambush, Hale planted charges beneath a supply convoy while the Predator distracted guards with bone-rattling roars. When the explosions lit the sky, the beast threw its bulk into fleeing soldiers, scattering them like dry leaves. Hale rode its flank through smoke and fire, adrenaline thundering as he fired into chaos. Together they left behind a massacre so total that alien survivors whispered not of a beast, but of a warlord commanding it. The effect was immediate. Rumors spread through the ranks, infecting discipline. Soldiers marched with eyes wide, scanning shadows not for enemy armies but for the glint of a human rifle and the glow of golden eyes. Even armored officers lowered their voices when mentioning the beast, afraid it might hear. But terror did not weaken the general's resolve. It sharpened it. With each report of sabotage they doubled their commitment to the trap. Camps spread across the valley like steel hives, pylons humming with lethal energy, nets anchored to ground and sky. Artillery nested in crags above, barrels angled toward the inevitable battleground. Hale knew the snare was closing, yet he pressed on. He had no illusions of victory, not in the conventional sense. But each blow he struck delayed the aliens, each ambush weakened their supply lines, each rumor eroded their morale. And with each day his bond with the Predator deepened. He no longer thought of it as a monster. It was a comrade, a partner, a force as committed to survival as he was. One night, while tending to the Predator's wounds beneath the cover of ancient stone, Hale spoke aloud though he knew the beast could not answer. They'll throw everything at us soon. Cannons. Nets. Maybe worse. You don't have to stay. You could vanish into this jungle and they'd never find you again. The Predator's eyes gleamed in the firelight. It rumbled, low and steady, before lowering its head into the dirt beside him. It would not leave. Hale felt the truth of it in his bones. They were bound now not by chance but by choice. At dawn the trap closed. Alien forces surged forward in coordinated waves, their boots thunderous, their weapons blazing. Hale and the Predator struck back with all the fury they could muster. Bullets cracked, claws tore, and soldiers fell screaming. Yet for every squad they cut down, another took its place. The jungle itself seemed to march against them, trees collapsing under armored walkers, sky darkened by carriers that rained fire. Hale fought like a man who had already died and was determined to drag enemies with him into the grave. His rifle roared until its barrel smoked, grenades flashing in his hands as he hurled them into packed ranks. The Predator was a storm of muscle and fang, smashing war machines into wreckage, scattering battalions like frightened prey. For a moment, it seemed even the trap could not hold them. Then the nets fell. A lattice of blazing light erupted from pylons buried deep, snapping into place above the valley like the bars of a colossal cage. Energy seared the ground, forming a prison of radiance that cut off escape. The Predator slammed into the field with a roar, its body shuddering as arcs of lightning crawled over its frame. Hale shouted, firing at pylons until his rifle clicked dry. Nothing broke the prison. Artillery thundered from the ridges. Shells slammed into the earth, blasting craters that swallowed trees and stone alike. Hale dove for cover, ears ringing, skin scorched by the near misses. The Predator staggered under the bombardment, its roars turning guttural, pain-laced. Still it fought, hurling itself against alien ranks, tearing through armor even as wounds opened across its body. Hale scrambled to its side, firing a scavenged alien rifle until his arms ached. He shouted over the chaos, words lost in the thunder of war, but his intent clear: he would not leave it. Side by side they fought, human and beast against an army. The alien generals watched from their command fortress, satisfaction curling their lips. There, one declared, "The cage holds. The beast tires. Victory is ours." Zacher, silent, leaned closer to the display. His many eyes tracked the human clinging to survival at the Predator's side. His mandibles clicked softly. "Not victory," he murmured. "Not yet. Look at him. Even in the jaws of death, he refuses to run." Below, the Predator faltered. Nets wrapped its limbs, anchors driving into the earth, pinning it in place. Hale fought to cut them, his hands blistered, his body beaten, but alien soldiers swarmed. He was seized, dragged down, weapons torn from him. A boot pressed his face into the dirt as shackles clamped around his wrists. The generals' voices carried through the comms, their triumph echoing across the battlefield. "The beast is ours. The human is nothing, an insect caught in the web. Parade them both before the Empire, and let the galaxy see the futility of resistance." But Hale, spitting blood into the soil, raised his head. His eyes found the Predators, straining against bonds, muscles trembling with the effort to rise. There was no surrender in either gaze. The battlefield rang with alien cheers, but beneath them, something darker simmered. The net had caught its prey. Yet caging a storm did not end it. It only ensured that when it broke free, everything in its path would burn. Chains bit into Marcus Hale's wrists, cold and heavy as stone. They dragged him across the war camp, through ranks of alien soldiers who jeered in triumph, their voices grating in a chorus of arrogance. Torches burned in iron sconces, casting jagged shadows against steel walls. The stench of fuel, sweat, and scorched blood clung to the air. Hale stumbled, shoulders bruised from strikes of alien rifle butts, yet his gaze never lowered. He refused them that. They bound him to an iron pylon in the center of the camp. Soldiers crowded close, eager to sneer at the fragile human who had dared to defy their empire. Words hissed in languages Hale did not understand, but mockery required no translation. He had been reduced in their eyes to a trophy. Nearby, beneath layers of crackling energy nets, the Predator lay. Its massive form was pressed to the ground, limbs splayed by anchors driven deep into the earth. The golden fire in its eyes burned dim beneath exhaustion and pain, but not extinguished. The beast growled low, each rumble vibrating through the soil, and soldiers instinctively recoiled, even chained as it was. From the command platform above, Zacher watched the display. His arms folded, his mandibles twitching in quiet thought. Victory gleamed in the faces of the younger generals, but Zacher's eyes lingered on the human. Hale's posture, his gaze, his refusal to bend, those were not the signs of a man conquered. They were the sparks of defiance that ignited wars. In the pit, Hale forced himself to breathe steady though every rib ached. He could hear the Predators breathing, ragged but steady, a rhythm in the dark. They had failed together, yet the failure did not taste like defeat. He closed his eyes briefly, recalling the nights beside the beast, the trust forged without words. The aliens thought him nothing. They had made the same mistake on every battlefield where humans had stood. Hours dragged. Soldiers feasted, boasting of parades to come, of planets trembling when the Empire unveiled its new weapon. Hale listened, memorizing their arrogance, feeding it into the furnace of his resolve. The Predator shifted once, chains clattering and silence fell. For a moment, fear rippled across the camp like a contagion. Then the guards laughed nervously, striking its flank with shock prods. The beast growled, then went still again. Night deepened. Fires dimmed. Shadows thickened. And then the storm broke. It began with a sound that should not have been possible, a snap like mountains breaking. One of the anchors shattered beneath the Predator's strength. Chains snapped taut, then tore free. Soldiers screamed as the beast surged upright, eyes blazing gold, wounds forgotten in the flood of fury. Energy nets burned across its hide, yet it ripped them apart with claws that glowed red from the force. The camp erupted in chaos. Hale jerked against his restraints, heart hammering as soldiers scrambled to arms. Plasma fire lit the darkness, streaks of light slamming into the Predator. The beast roared, a sound so vast it shook the walls and silenced weapons for an instant. Then it leapt, jaws closing on the nearest cannon, tearing steel in half as though it were paper. Hale struggled until blood slicked his wrists. Soldiers rushed past, blind to him in their panic. His eyes darted, finding a fallen blade glinting on the ground. He stretched, pain lancing through his shoulders, until the hilt scraped against his fingertips. With a desperate twist, he dragged it close, sawing against his bonds until the iron frayed and split. The Predator tore through the camp like fire through dry grass. Armored vehicles toppled beneath its weight, towers collapsed as its claws carved through supports. Soldiers broke ranks, their discipline drowned in primal terror. Hale seized a rifle from a fallen officer, the weapon heavy and strange but deadly in his hands. He fired into the confusion, each shot precise, covering the Predator's advance. They found each other in the storm. Amid smoke and screams, Predator and human locked eyes. No words passed, only certainty. Together again they cut a swath through the heart of the camp. Zacher leaned forward on the command platform, many eyes wide. Impossible, hissed the younger general beside him. It cannot endure so much firepower. It does not endure alone, Zacher murmured. His claws dug into the railing. It endures because of him. The Predator shielded Hale as energy blasts rained down, its bulk intercepting volleys that would have torn the man apart. Hale darted between its legs, firing at targets it could not reach, striking with the cunning precision of a soldier who knew every second mattered. They moved not as man and beast but as halves of the same force. Tanks rolled into position, barrels glowing with the charge of annihilation. The Predator lowered itself, muscles coiling before springing with impossible strength. It landed among the machines, claws carving through barrels, jaws clamping down on armor until metal shrieked and split. Hale followed, diving through wreckage, planting charges that sent shockwaves tearing across the battlefield. The war camp disintegrated under their assault. Fires climbed into the sky, smoke blotting out the stars. Soldiers fled, their cheers of triumph now screams of terror. Some dropped weapons and fell to their knees, praying to be spared by the god-beast they had tried to cage. Amid the inferno, Hale stumbled, breath ragged, body battered beyond endurance. A bolt of plasma grazed his shoulder, searing flesh. He cried out, collapsing to one knee. Instantly the Predator was there, its massive frame looming, its body shielding him from further fire. It roared again, the sound shaking the heavens before crushing the last resistance beneath tooth and claw. When silence finally fell, the camp lay in ruins. Smoldering wreckage littered the valley, and alien corpses lay strewn like discarded husks. Hale leaned against the Predator's flank, his vision swimming. The beast stood tall, chest heaving, blood dripping from its wounds, yet its head lowered to him, eyes burning with something more than feral rage. Zacher watched from afar as his officers trembled. The younger generals shouted for retreat, their pride shattered. But Zacher's gaze never left the human standing bloodied yet unbroken beside the Predator. His mandibles clicked in slow rhythm. What he saw was not chance. It was a bond, stronger than any chain they could forge, a weapon the Empire could not replicate. Hale pressed a hand against the Predator's scarred hide. Its rumble vibrated through his bones, steady and low, as if promising it would not fall so long as he stood. Together they had crushed an army. Together they would face whatever came next. But Zacher's mind was already turning. For every camp destroyed, for every regiment lost, the Empire had more to send. The war was far from over. And if the galaxy learned what had happened here, that a human had stood with a predator feared by gods. Then their enemies would see not weakness but hope. Hale lifted his gaze to the burning horizon, where smoke rose like banners against the stars. His chest ached with pain, but his resolve was iron. This was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater, something the generals could not control. The predator's roar echoed across the night, carrying into the heavens like a challenge. Soldiers who had fled heard it and froze in terror. On the command ship, officers shuddered at the sound. Across the stars, whispers would soon follow. The Empire had tried to cage a storm. Instead, they had unleashed a legend. Smoke still curled from the ruins when the last cries of the dying faded into silence. Hale stood at the predator's side, his body trembling with exhaustion, blood seeping from half a dozen wounds. His breath came shallow, but his grip on the captured rifle remained unbroken. The beast loomed over him, its golden eyes flickering with exhaustion but still ablaze with unyielding fury. Around them, the war camp had become a graveyard. Steel shattered, towers toppled, soldiers scattered into ashen shadows. The predator lowered its head until its muzzle hovered inches from Hale's shoulder. Its breath was hot, ragged, carrying the metallic tang of blood. For a moment Hale reached up, resting his palm against its scarred hide. That brief touch, man and beast bound in silent communion, was worth more than victory. It was trust beyond words, forged in fire and blood. Above the wreckage, the command platform groaned under shifting metal. Zacher remained tall and still, watching as flames licked at the sky. The younger generals had fled long before, their discipline unraveling with the army's collapse. But Zacher did not move. His many eyes locked on the human standing unbroken in the ruins, and on the predator that bowed to him as no force had ever compelled it to. Hale sensed the weight of that gaze. He turned, rifle raised, chest heaving. Across the gulf of firelight, human and alien general regarded one another. In Zacher's stare, Hale read no hatred, only calculation. And in Hale's, Zacher saw the reflection of something he had not expected. A mortal who had seized the loyalty of the galaxy's most feared predator not with chains, but with courage. "You've lost," Hale said hoarsely, his voice carrying across the crackling wreckage. "Tell your empire, humanity isn't prey." The words were not shouted, yet they struck harder than any cannon blast. Zacher inclined his head slightly, mandibles twitching. Then, without another word, he turned and walked into the smoke. His command ship lifted soon after, vanishing into the night sky, carrying the story of what had been witnessed. Hale sank to one knee, every nerve screaming. The predator leaned close, curling around him protectively, its bulk forming a shield against the chill wind. He pressed his forehead against its scarred flank, feeling the steady thrum of life within it. They had survived. Against all odds they had survived. But survival was only the beginning. Within days, whispers spread beyond the battlefield. Refugees carried tales of the predator breaking its chains, of a lone human who had stood beside it and turned an army to ash. The story leapt from campfire to cargo ship, from smugglers to spies, until it reached the ears of rulers and rebels alike. The Empire sought to silence it, but silence is powerless against awe. On distant worlds, soldiers whispered the human's name with reverence. On conquered planets, slaves raised their heads with hope. In war councils of rival civilizations, commanders leaned forward in disbelief as reports confirmed what rumor had promised. The predator feared even by gods had chosen a companion, and that companion was a man of earth. For Hale there was no time to revel in legend. He and the predator moved through hostile lands, hunted by remnants of the shattered army and stalked by assassins sent to erase the tale before it grew too powerful. Each encounter tested them anew, but each battle deepened the bond between man and beast. Hale learned the predator's moods, its rhythm in combat, its warning growls that came before an ambush. The predator, in turn, grew to trust Hale's instincts, following his hand signals as though they were its own thoughts. Together they became more than fugitives. They became a storm on the Empire's edge. Yet the true test came not in ambushes or skirmishes, but in the weight of choice. On the shattered moon of Dareth, Hale and the predator cornered another Imperial regiment. Civilians were caught in the crossfire, huddled in crumbling shelters as tanks rolled through. Hale's body screamed for rest, his wounds barely closed, but he knew hesitation meant death for innocence. He glanced at the predator. Its golden eyes burned, awaiting his signal. "Protect them," Hale whispered. "We end this here and now." The beast roared, a sound so vast it cracked stone. Together they charged, man and monster side by side, ripping through the Imperial line. Hale's rifle sang, each shot cutting down soldiers before they could target the refugees. The Predator smashed tanks into ruin, claws rending steel, its massive body absorbing fire that would have turned the shelters to dust. Civilians stared through smoke and flame, watching their salvation come in the form of a man no larger than themselves and a creature they had been taught to fear. When the dust settled, when the last cannon lay shattered and the last soldier fled, Hale stood among the people, bloodied but unbroken. Children crept forward first, small hands reaching for the Predator's scarred hide. It lowered itself gently, rumbling low, allowing their touch. All lit their faces. The beast that had crushed armies purred like thunder under their hands. In that moment Hale understood. This was no longer just survival. This was revolution. Hope had found a shape, and it looked like a human with a Predator at his side. The Empire could not contain it. Zacher returned to his masters with warnings that grew sharper each day. He spoke of an army crushed not by numbers or technology, but by a bond no weapon could replicate. His words unsettled councils and warlords, for they had built their dominion on fear. And fear, once broken, spreads faster than chains. Hale, however, cared little for politics. His world was the battlefield, his cause the lives saved with each strike. Yet wherever he went, crowds followed, whispers swelling into chants. The human and the beast. The storm and the man. The Predator's chosen. Titles multiplied like sparks, and with each retelling the truth only grew sharper. Humanity was not prey. The Predator knew no words, yet it understood the weight of their journey. At night, when Hale's body could fight no more, the beast curled around him, its warmth sheltering him from cold and nightmares alike. Its purr was steady, resonant, a lullaby for a soldier who bore the galaxy's burdens. And though it could crush armies, though even gods had fled its roar, it bent only to him. The climax came when the Empire, desperate to reclaim dominance, unleashed its greatest fleet on the free world of Carvis. 100 warships descended, blotting out the stars. Entire continents trembled at their arrival. Hale stood at the city's edge, Predator at his side, watching fire fall from the heavens. The people behind him whispered prayers, but Hale spoke none. He placed his hand against the Predator's hide, steady and calm. "We end it here," he said softly. The Predator's roar split the sky, louder than thunder, carrying across oceans. The fleet faltered at the sound. And then the battle began. What followed was not war, it was legend. Hale and the Predator carved through invading forces like lightning incarnate, striking with precision and fury. Ships burned in the sky, their wreckage raining down into oceans. On the ground, the Predator tore through battalions while Hale rallied defenders, his voice and rifle cutting through despair like a blade. Civilians who had once bowed in fear now rose in defiance, inspired by the sight before them. The tide turned not because of numbers but because of belief. At the height of battle, Hale scaled the wreck of a burning tank, smoke curling around him. He raised his rifle high, voice raw as he shouted, "We are not prey." The Predator roared beside him, the sound shaking the heavens. Soldiers on both sides froze. And in that instant the balance broke. The Empire's troops faltered, their fear overwhelming their orders. The defenders surged, sweeping the field. When silence fell, the fleet was ash, the Empire broken on yet another world. Hale stood battered, his body a map of scars, but his spirit unyielding. The Predator bowed its massive head beside him, not as beast to master but as warrior to warrior. From that day the galaxy remembered. They remembered the Empire's defeat not as the work of fleets or kings, but of a single man and the Predator that chose him. Their bond became the rallying cry of countless worlds. Songs were sung of the storm that crushed armies, of the roar that broke gods, of the human who stood unafraid in the fire. Marcus Hale looked to the stars, knowing the war was not finished. Yet as the Predator's golden eyes met his, steady and unshaken, he felt no fear. Together they had carved hope into the bones of the galaxy. Together they would finish what had begun. And across the void, in war councils and hidden chambers, even the Empire's greatest generals whispered the truth with trembling voices. Humanity was no longer prey.